to order, and I will begin with a land acknowledgement. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and the Métis homeland, and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Iska, as well as Métis and Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. I'll begin with the roll call of committee members. Councillor Morgan.
Here.
Councillor Principe.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Rutherford.
Good morning.
Good morning. And in chambers with us is Councillor Jans.
Good morning.
And I will look to see if any others are online. See Councillor Tang has just joined.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm just going to go by memory. Councillor Stevenson. Councillor Salvador.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Parmar.
Good morning.
Councillor Clark.
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Paquette.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Mayor Knack.
Good morning.
Good morning. Have I missed anybody?
Just myself. It's Mike Elliott here.
Oh, and Councillor Elliott. I'm sorry. The one who sits next to me in chambers. Sorry about that. All right. And declaration of pecuniary interest. Before we consider today's agenda, I will ask all members of council present if they have any pecuniary or conflicts of interest to declare regarding any of the items to be discussed. A pecuniary interest exists when an item could monetarily affect a member of council, their employer, or family member. A conflict of interest exists when an item could affect a private interest of a member of council, their employer, or family member. Do any members of council have a pecuniary or conflict of interest to declare? Seeing and hearing none, there's no declared pecuniary or conflicts of interest. We'll move to adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve adoption of the agenda, please?
I can motion that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morgan. And any questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. And that is carried. Approval of the minutes. Councillor Rutherford?
So moved.
Thank you. Any changes, questions? Seeing none, please vote.
Just missing one vote, Councillor Rutherford.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. And that is carried. I'm not aware of any council protocol recognitions at this time. And we'll move on to select items for debate. Councillor Rutherford?
Yes, I'll select item 7.1, please.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on reports not selected for debate.
So moved.
Thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. And that is carried.
Would you like me to read back what committee passed?
Please do.
Thank you, Chair Wright. This morning, Community and Public Services Committee have passed the following two without debate. Item 5.1, Bylaw 21301, amendments to Bylaw 14600, Community Standards Bylaw, will be returning September 28, 2026. And the recommendation in item 7.2, bylaw 21337, amendments to the Animal Care and Control bylaw 21244.
Thank you very much. So now we do have a request to speak. Councillor Morgan?
Okay, yeah, I'll move that we hear from the speakers. The list, I don't have the list. Sorry, so that Community and Public Services Committee hear from the following speakers in panels when appropriate. We have bylaw 21283, amendments to the traffic bylaw 5590. One, Eric Lewis, Canadian Union of Public Employees, Local 30, in person. Oh, there he is. Aaron Budnick, remote. Do we have Aaron?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, right on. Eric Estrada, Alberta Avenue Business Association, remote. Go back to that one. Christina Varvis, Alberta Avenue Business Association, remote. Check in again. And David Plamondon, Alberta Avenue Business Association, remote.
Okay, well, hopefully they'll join us as we go along. Any questions? Can we vote?
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. We have no specific times on agenda, no councillor inquiries that I'm aware of, no other reports to be dealt with at a different meeting besides the one we already approved. There's no unfinished business, so we'll move on to our public reports, which is bylaw 21283, amendments to the traffic bylaw 5590. And I'm sure administration has a presentation for us.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Flaman. I'm the Deputy City Manager for Community Services. We are here to present our report on amendments to Traffic Bylaw 5590 with respect to parking enforcement during parking bans to support snow clearing efforts as directed by Council last year. To provide some context to our report, we have a brief presentation with some historical context, our approach to snow and ice control at the City of Edmonton, and a synopsis of our enforcement efforts. I'm joined today by David Jones, Chief Bylaw Enforcement Officer and Branch Manager for Community Standards, Caitlin Zarabeski, Branch Manager, Parks and Road Services, Keith Scott, Deputy Chief, Complaints and Investigations, Sally Reimer, the Director of Financial Operations for Financial Services, Brian Marbach, Barrister and Solicitor for Legal Services, Marlene Fair, Financial Director, and others online. With that, I will pass it over to David.
Thanks, Jen, and good morning, everyone. This work falls under Council Policy C409K, Snow and Ice Control Policy, which speaks to the outcomes of safety, reliability, and connectivity. That policy speaks to the guiding principles of shared responsibility in maintaining safe and livable winter mobility, which includes the cooperation of the City of Edmonton, the business community, and Edmontonians. For today's conversation, that focus on shared responsibility is referring to our efforts to effectively and efficiently clear our mobility network of snow, including the removal of vehicles from locations subject to a parking ban. Unfortunately, despite the many efforts to communicate parking bans, which you will hear about in a second, Edmontonians still fail to comply with those parking bans. In fact, at the beginning of the Phase 2 parking ban last week, we observed a 10% compliance rate in residential neighborhoods. That ongoing non-compliance leads to inefficient and incomplete snow removal and does not satisfy the guiding principles of shared responsibility. In October of 2022, Council raised the fine amount from $100 to $250. At that time, the rationale for the fine increase was to improve the compliance rate for parking bans and to bring the fine amount in line with similar bylaw infractions. Before discussing the methodology of our enforcement efforts further, I'll pass things off to Caitlin Zarabeski to discuss the first three of our 4 E's of engagement or enforcement: engage, educate, and encourage, which in this case is done through a very robust public communications effort. Caitlin will also discuss the ramifications of the non-compliance I've talked about for her team's work.
Effective communication is a foundation to effective compliance. In recent years, our strategy has shifted from static updates to a more agile approach that keeps council, the public, and partners informed in real time about snow and ice control, including parking bans. We continue to shift from a system that was much more passive, expecting residents to check a website, and encouraging residents to be more active. Since fall of 2022, residents have been able to subscribe to our service notification tool, which pushes text and email alerts to residents. In large part due to a strong communication push, we have now seen a growth from 43,000 users to over 59,000 local addresses and subscribers. This year, we have utilized a series of tactics to publicly communicate about snow and ice control and parking bans. They include, but are not limited to, proactive media availabilities, including all at the start of snow and ice season and upon calling the Phase 2 residential parking ban, frequent social media posts across city platforms, news releases or PSAs to announce program milestones, responding to media inquiries, which we've responded to over 115 since December 1st, direct communications with business improvement areas, community leagues, all to help them reinforce key information with their members and their residents. We've also developed a video which provides details around parking bans with over 450,000 views since being posted on January 7th. Parking ban alerts are also on ETS bus detection signs. Next slide, please. We measure our success through annual snow and ice communication survey, which has had over 4,100 respondents in 2025. The survey is regularly conducted each spring after the snow and ice season has ended. The data on this slide shows a very important story. We're bridging the knowledge gap. 78% of residents understand the different clearing levels that exist. 71% understand the rules of Phase 1 parking ban. However, we still face an awareness gap. Despite knowing the rules, only 52% of respondents were aware that the Phase 2 parking ban in January 2025 was actually in effect. This validates our strategy. Residents know how to park, but less know when those restrictions are in effect. This is why we are aggressively pushing the service notification tool. Next slide, please. Now is the time to remind everyone about the operational mechanics of the ban, as this is where we see the most friction with the public. Phase 1 applies to our major arterial and collector network. These are marked by permanent white seasonal signage. We provide a minimum of 8 hours notice before enforcement begins. Phase 2 affects residential and is often where confusion arises. While the city ban may last up to 14 days, individual neighborhoods are usually only impacted for about 72 hours. Crucially, we're communicating a clear road rule. Residents may resume parking on the specific street after it has been cleared, even if the citywide ban is still in effect. This minimizes disruption to neighborhoods, clarifying this park where cleared rule is a priority for our communications, along with the operational benefits of not having cars on the road. When the roads are clear, the crews can clear. They get cleared faster and better, and when everyone complies, truly everyone wins. To help get the message out, we recently released a video of how parking ban works on our channel, which we'll show you next. Next slide, please.
Heavy snowfall over short periods in Edmonton brings winter parking bans. This gives our city crews space to clear snow and ice efficiently. Here's how parking bans work. In a Phase 1 parking ban, crews clear main roads, bus routes, and roads within business improvement areas. Phase 1 bans can last up to 5 days. Keep an eye out for white seasonal no parking signs indicating roads cleared during a Phase 1 parking ban. Parking is still permitted on most residential streets and paid lots. When a Phase 1 is complete, the ban may shift to Phase 2 if necessary. During Phase 2, crews clear remaining residential and industrial roadways across the city. Residential roadways are cleared to about 5 centimeters of snowpack. Phase 2 bans can last up to 14 days, though individual neighborhoods will only be affected for 3 days at a time. Watch for the yellow no parking signs that will be posted in your neighborhood at least 24 hours prior to clearing. During Phase 2, you can park in your garage, driveway, or on any street completed during Phase 1, provided parking is normally allowed there. It's important to remember that plows can make multiple passes on the same stretch of road, so don't resume parking until the area is marked complete. The roadway's snow clearing map displays the status of each road, and subscribers to the city's service notifications receive an email or text when their roadways are completed. Keep in mind, not every Phase 1 parking ban leads to Phase 2. Parking bans are also called if conditions like ruts require our plows to get in and make the roadway safe. For all parking bans, the city gives at least 8 hours notice. This is communicated through social and local media, Edmonton.ca, and more. You can also check the roadways snow clearing map for the schedule and status of roadways impacted by a parking ban, or subscribe to service notifications and receive parking ban communication specific to your address. We all know Edmonton's weather is unpredictable. By working together, we can all travel safely through the snowy months. Learn more and sign up for alerts at edmonton.ca/safetravels.
Next slide, please. In terms of signage and notification, Phase 1 routes are identified by permanent white seasonal no parking signs, as the video mentioned. Because these signs are static year-round, enforcement on those priority routes can begin within 8 hours of minimum notice. Phase 2 affects residential neighborhoods, as we're aware. Here we deploy easier to see yellow parking ban in effect signs. It is important to manage expectations regarding placement. We place these signs at neighborhood entrances 24 hours prior to clearing. Due to the vast geographic scale of over 12,000 kilometers of roadway, we do not have the operational capacity to place a sign at every individual residential street. Because a driver might pass the sign at the neighborhood entrance, the roadways clearing map and the service notification tools are the best way to stay up to date. Public reliance on those digital tools is exceptionally high. So far this winter, as of January 16th, the map has been viewed more than 650,000 times, and people watched the map update more than 31 million times. The service notification sends updates to the subscribers when the location is scheduled and completed. Edmontonians are actively using digital tools to verify the status of their specific streets, while physical signage might be missed. Next slide, please. I want to focus on the operational why. Why is compliance so critical? It's about the physical speed and quality of the work our crews can do on the street. When a resident leaves their car on the street during a ban, as seen in the pictures on the slide, it creates a chain of reaction of operational issues. First is the curb-to-curb failure. Our operators cannot blade the street fully. They are forced to weave around vehicles, leaving behind large ridges of snow and debris, which are known as windrows. Second is the rutting effect. That leftover snow doesn't just disappear. As we saw in the 2024-2025 season, freeze-thaw cycles turn these snow piles into hard-to-pack ice and deep ruts. They are incredibly difficult to remove later and create hazardous driving conditions for all neighbors along that stretch after the plows have left. Third is accessibility. When we can't push the snow to the curb, the driving lane gets narrower. Sometimes dropping below the 3.2 meter standard, this can choke traffic flow and create difficulties for our partners in ETS, DATS, EFRS, and emergency response. Additionally, non-compliance creates frustration for our crews on the streets. Neighborhoods are frustrated when cars aren't moved or when windrows are placed, so therefore our operators end up being the brunt of some of that frustration. Ultimately, a parking ban is an operational tool. We need to deliver the safe, reliable mobility infrastructure Edmontonians expect. And with that, I'll hand that back to David.
Thanks, Caitlin. If the communication efforts that Caitlin described do not achieve compliance during a parking ban, the City of Edmonton has to rely on enforcement strategies. To do so, we hire 5 seasonal municipal enforcement officers whose primary responsibility is managing snow and ice control, including enforcing parking bans and sidewalk clearing. During the 2022 to 2023 snow and ice season, thanks to some additional one-time funding, we are able to hire 15 temporary municipal enforcement officers, allowing for significantly more proactive enforcement and more consistent efforts citywide. Deterrence theory suggests that there are 3 elements to successfully elicit behavior change: swiftness, certainty, and severity. Of those 3, research has shown that certainty is the most important element to maintain. It is to achieve that element of certainty that in other areas we use proactive enforcement and hotspot patrols, such as our work in transit locations. Consistent enforcement efforts over time are critical in affecting that behavior change that we're looking for on this file. So for this example, the element of swiftness is applied by leaving the ticket for a parking ban infraction on the vehicle. To some extent, our past efforts to tow vehicles a short distance to remove them from the parking ban route was an additional piece of the swiftness element. However, we were only able to tow 10% of the illegally parked vehicles due to contractor constraints. To ensure the element of certainty is met, people must believe that if they contravene a rule, they will get caught. In this case, someone has to believe that they will be ticketed for contravening a parking ban. With 5 enforcement officers, around 12,000 kilometers of roadways, as Caitlin has pointed out, and about 750,000 vehicles registered in Edmonton, we are only in a position to be completely response-driven rather than proactive. To demonstrate our potential, during a 15-day parking ban in early 2023, when we have 15 officers, we were able to issue approximately 2,900 parking ban tickets. During a similar 17-day parking ban in early 2025, our 5 officers were able to issue only 1,400 tickets. We have examined redirecting other enforcement staff to support parking bans. However, past attempts have meant either reducing or stopping other services, and it's created a significant backlog on other enforcement requests, including snow and ice control on residential sidewalks and priority parking complaints, such as around fire hydrants and accessible parking stalls. As you're aware, for the current parking ban that is in effect right now, we have brought in additional parking enforcement officers and peace officers, and this effort is costing the City of Edmonton additional dollars and has resulted in us pausing some services for our peace officer response. And finally, the element of severity. Council's move in 2022 to increase the parking ban fine from $100 to $250 was an effort to improve non-compliance by pulling on that severity lever. This context, including the discontinuance of towing at the end of December, should be taken into consideration as you contemplate the reduction of this fine to $150. So to summarize, in order to drive the compliance of Edmontonians who do not comply with parking ban declarations to ensure efficient and effective snow removal, Council should consider their application of all 3 elements of swiftness, certainty, and severity when developing the deterrence theory to ensure our roadways are cleared as efficiently as possible. As requested, we have prepared a bylaw amendment to modify the parking ban fine amount from $250 to $150. In order to support a fulsome conversation, I can offer the following information. Based on a 5-year average, reducing the fine to $150 per ticket would result in an estimated annual revenue reduction of approximately $230,000. Factoring in an early payment option would have further impact of somewhere between $23,000 and $93,000 per year, based on a range of 20 to 80% of folks engaging in an early payment option, representing a total potential revenue reduction of between $255,000 and $325,000 annually, based on that 5-year average. If the lower rate is approved, a revenue reduction will be included as an adjustment in the 2026 municipal tax levy confirmation, which will be presented to Council in April 2026. We were not able to create an early payment option for reduced fines for a few reasons, and I'll highlight these now. Without a budget for this work, We could not complete the software upgrades needed to support such a program. Additionally, we determined that we would need more staff resources to develop and maintain that program. Full costs to implement remain unknown at this time, and a motion from committee would be required to direct administration to provide a report including a budget request and a project plan for the early payment option. Additionally, there are some legal implications to an early payment program, which, while I'll highlight them here, I will defer to my legal services colleagues for any further clarification. Early payment options are likely to create legal difficulties in determining if early payment was made on time. For example, an online ticket payment is generally not available until 3 to 5 business days after the date of the offense. Online payment cannot be accepted until the ticket is entered into the system. Payments submitted by mail are presumed to have been served 7 days from the date of mailing. A 7-day early payment option presents a legal risk in establishing service of early payment within the relevant time frame. We could also see an increase in parking ban tickets being challenged in court if citizens cannot use the early payment option due to operational limitations. And finally, it could lead to the perception of unfairness if the early payment option was missed somehow. Your committee has the opportunity to accept this report for information or advance the proposed bylaw changes to council for debate and 3 readings. We will await further direction on the early fine payment option subsequent to any discussion you might have today about the proposal based on our preliminary report. This concludes our presentation for this report, and we are prepared to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think we will now ask you to move so we can have our speakers come down.
We have a public speaker desk set up.
That's our new setup. Okay, I'm sorry. Keith, sit down. Okay. Sorry about that. But before we do call the speakers down, I just want to go over the process. So for each item, administration may provide they did provide opening remarks in their presentation. The members of the public have been approved to speak will then be invited to make their presentations. Speakers will be heard in panels, and each speaker will have 5 minutes to present. The clerk will run the official timer in the meeting room, and it will be displayed on the virtual meeting. The light will be green for the first 4 minutes, turn yellow when there is 1 minute remaining, and flash red when the 5 minutes are up. When everyone in the panel has had a chance to present, members of council may ask questions of you or other panel members. For this reason, please remain in the meeting until all questions have been asked of your panel. If you are participating virtually, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please reach out to the office of the city clerk using the contact information provided in your confirmation of registration or at city.clerk@edmonton.ca. If you are here in person, city staff will guide you to your seat when it's time for your panel. Before we begin our discussion, I want to share my expectations for the conduct of everyone participating to ensure a safe and inclusive environment and workplace. These expectations apply to both in-person and virtual attendees. Hearing from the public is an important part of council's process, so we know the full diversity of options that exist in our community. As meeting chair, my role is not to moderate the nature of the content being discussed, but to ensure behaviors support a safe, respectful, and neutral space for my colleagues, city employees, and the public. Disrespectful comments, including those directed at individual staff members or other speakers, profane language or gestures, and behaviors such as shouting, cheering, or clapping, or political campaigning will not be tolerated. In addition, use of the raise hand feature, chat, emoticon response, or AI note-taking tools in the virtual meeting are not permitted. I'll direct the clerk to have security remove anyone violating these expectations. I will not provide any additional warnings. Once removed, the person will not be permitted to rejoin the meeting. This meeting is being live streamed, and everyone is welcome to watch online. So, clerk, if I can ask you to help those in person to their seats. Eric Lewis from Canadian Union of Public Employees, Local 30. And we have Aaron Budnick online, Eric Estrada, and I understand all those from the Alberta Avenue Business Association are online now. So Eric Estrada, Christina Vargas, and David Plamondon. All right, Mr. Lewis, go ahead, please. You have
I'm just
5
waiting for the
minutes.
light to turn green. Oh, I guess you can hear me. Good morning, members of committee. As you are all aware, I'm Eric Lewis, QP30 president. My members have been hard at work clearing roads, sidewalks, bus stops, active pathways, and more to make Edmontonian and Edmonton get around this city. What I've got is some feedback from our members and what they've experienced this season. Parking bans are a valuable tool as they work to clear residential roads in a timely and effective manner. By not having to maneuver around parked vehicles, they can be in and out of a neighborhood as quickly as possible, thus clearing roads fast. The problem is that compliance with the parking ban is not as high as it needs to be. When vehicles are left on the roads, it makes the work more difficult and greatly increases the chance of an incident between the snow clearing equipment and parked vehicles. My members are professionals and take pride in the work that they do, but accidents happen, and the more vehicles left on the road, the more difficult it is to meet the standards of snow clearing. Each incident causes downtime to the operations of snow clearing, often taking hours away from operations to report and investigate, all which means less snow is being cleared and at a cost to the city. My members would like the city to do everything they can to ensure that residents know about parking bans, understand when they need to get their vehicles moved, and respect the ban and make sure they give my members lots of room to work. A recent post on our QP30 social media about parked cars in snow clearing operations has over 130,000 views with over 10,000 comments across multiple platforms, with the majority of the residents saying, ticket and tow the cars. QP30 members are on the front line, which means they are often bear of brunt of people's frustration. Unfortunately, I've heard way too many stories of members being verbally and sometimes physically assaulted by members of the public, and a lot of this is because they didn't move their cars and now have a windrow around them, or the parked cars prevented them from going down their street. I appreciate that many of you in recent weeks have put out messages asking residents to give our members room to work. Your support for employees means a lot, and if you can keep it up, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time and support for the frontline workers. Anything you can do to make our work easier will help improve service to Edmontonians. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Next, we have Aaron Budnick online.
Good morning, councillors and Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I want to start by acknowledging and expressing my appreciation for the hard work of city crews during this difficult winter season. I'm here to urge council not to reduce parking ban fines for vehicles that block snow clearing operations. This decision matters because parking during snow clearing does real harm. It delays clearing, wastes public money, and creates unsafe conditions, especially for people walking, biking, using mobility aids, or trying to reach transit when the sidewalks and curb lines are left buried. Administration's own report is clear. Ongoing non-compliance is the single cause of inefficient and incomplete snow removal. Parked vehicles prevent curb-to-curb clearing, leaving snow behind and creating hazards. This is not theoretical. We see it every winter. Snow piled at curb cuts, sidewalks narrowed or blocked, bike lanes filled with windrows, and streets left uneven and rutted for weeks. When snow is not properly cleared the first time, the result is not just inconvenience. It leads to slip and fall injuries, inaccessible streets, and people being forced into traffic. The burden falls hardest on seniors, people with disabilities, parents with strollers, and people who bike or walk because they cannot afford a car or choose not to own one because using roadways is often the only option available due to gaps in the cycling network or uncleared sidewalks. Moreover, everyone that uses sidewalks has to cross the roadway between blocks, and without fast and reliable snow clearing, those crossings can be impassable chasms, especially for people with disabilities or mobility constraints. Administration also notes that compliance is already low, particularly in high-density neighborhoods with limited off-street parking, the same places where walking, transit, and biking matters the most. In 2022, Council increased the fine from $100 to $250 to improve compliance. That decision recognized a simple truth. If the cost of breaking the rule is low, people will keep doing it. Administration now proposes lowering the fine to $150, but also states that it cannot determine whether the higher fine failed because enforcement resources were cut shortly after the increase. We need to fund snow clearing appropriately, but we also need to fund enforcement to a level to ensure that snow clearing can do their job, a job we all rely on them being able to do well. Much like the zoning bylaw renewal that will be coming soon, pulling a policy back before any reasonable chance to gather data and make an informed decision is not a fair evaluation of a policy. Public understanding is not the issues. Most residents understand snow clearing levels and parking ban rules. The problem is behavior, not awareness. Deterrence depends on certainty, swiftness, and severity. Reducing severity while enforcement capacity remains limited moves us in the wrong direction. Reducing this fine will also reduce city revenue and increase long-term costs through repeat clearing, maintenance, and injury risk. More importantly, this is an equity issue. When snow is not cleared property, drivers are inconvenienced, but people walking and biking are put in danger. Council's commitments to Vision Zero, accessibility, and climate goals do not stop in winter. Parking during snow clearing is not a harmless mistake. It blocks public workers from doing their jobs and puts others at risk. Council should keep the current fine, restore enforcement capacity, and focus on consistency and certainty, not leniency. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Budnick. Next, we'll go to Eric Estrada with the Alberta Avenue Business Association.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I have the secretary of our board start our group, Christina Barris, please?
Sure, we'll switch it up a bit. Christina, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time today. My name is Christina Varvis, and my family has owned and operated a restaurant on Alberta Avenue for almost 50 years now. I myself haven't been there for quite as long, but I'm fortunate to say that most of my education and work life has taken place in this area, and I love seeing how our district continues to welcome and support generations of Edmontonians from so many backgrounds and cultures. Today, I would like to speak to you as a board secretary for the 2025-2026 term. Going back in time a bit, in a letter from August 6th from this past year, the ABBA board wrote to council in support of the city operations report regarding improved accessibility through active pathway snow removal and sidewalk repair. A few days later, on August 11th, ABBA's executive director spoke at the Community and Public Service Committee to support accessibility for all. This subject is especially important to me as I see the need to meet its goals every day. Many of our patrons who visit our restaurants and neighboring businesses are seniors, and many of them struggle with their mobility and need assistance, whether in the form of a walker, wheelchair, or an arm to hold on to. My own parents struggle as well, being seniors themselves who also are unable to drive. Getting to the doctor or dentist is often more stressful for them than the appointment itself. I also see families every day with strollers who also find it challenging to access the places they need. Myself, I've been walking and taking transit all over the city for most of my life, even as a kid with my mom, and I love it, to be honest, even more than driving a car, because it allows me to feel more connected to the city. But I have had my share of incidents and challenges, and I've seen people of all ages who rely on constantly cleared and maintained sidewalks to allow them to go where they need to safely and comfortably. Accessible pathways are one of the key signs to a safe and healthy winter city that keep residents safe and healthy too. Back to this past year, the ABBA board requested that council approve our BIA to financing to expand our street team services and provide a more accessible district for all Edmontonians. We are very grateful for council support and hope that this is our path towards a more accessible city for all. On the same note, we are in support of decreasing the fine amount for parking bans, as we see this as an open door for collaboration without coercion. We see the city willing to build a relationship based on mutual respect, trust, and shared responsibility where people want to contribute rather than being forced to by punishment. Thank you again for your time, and I'd like to pass the mic again to Eric.
Thank you, Christina. Eric, you're ready to go now?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
5 minutes.
Okay, waiting for the green. Good morning, committee members. Thank you. I want to echo our gratitude for our approval of the BIA financing to extend our program expansion. Over my 3 years serving the business improvement area so far, I continue to hear from our members that maintaining infrastructure is improving, but it remains a challenge. This is not only a discontent about the service levels or the lack of communications on the timelines and expected resolution times. The conversation we are hearing are grounded in the perceived imbalance between the city service delivery and the value proposition for delivering those services efficiently. I think decreasing the fine amount for parking ban is another step in the right direction. However, this does not solve the underlying problem of city's capacity to address mid-sized problems on its own. We hear again from administration that this is a shared responsibility. Yet a clear public path for how we collaborate has not yet been laid out. What the community hears is that they have to pay more or be quiet and grateful for the service that they're getting right now. Lowering the fines shows that you're willing to forward and you're willing to move forward. Sorry, I'm gonna take water. Lowering the fines shows that you are willing to move forward and build a community of communities. I am optimistic that the spirit will be reflected on the upcoming 4-year fiscal plan. Thank you.
Whoops, thank you very much. And lastly, we have David Plamondon. And are we waiting for the timer to look green or?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, committee members. I appreciate the opportunity, as always, to speak to you as a representative of the Alberta Avenue Business Association, as a business owner, and as a citizen of Edmonton. I'd like to start by saying how much I appreciate the Sisyphean task that the city and, more importantly, the snow clearing crews have to try to deal with the snowfall every year, and particularly this year. I know how heavy it was. Like Eric and Christine, I'd like to thank the city for supporting our work and doing our part in helping clear snow and remove barriers to accessibility in our neighborhoods. One of the speakers earlier mentioned that compliance is low in high density areas, and also mentioned this being an equity issue. And I'd like to speak to that because it is an equity issue. As much as I would love to live in a city and a province that has an infrastructure that supports folks getting around the city with meaningful transit and not having to rely on vehicles, that's unfortunately not the city and province that we live in. For years, I've heard from young folks, from older folks, how necessary it is to have a vehicle to go to work, to go to school, to get around the city. And while we do constantly improve our transit, there are many areas of the city that are just inaccessible for folks to get to without a vehicle. So there is a huge need for many folks, particularly who live in more economically disparate neighborhoods like Alberta Avenue, to have a vehicle. We also have to live with the reality that Alberta Avenue's infrastructure was not built at a time where vehicles were as prevalent, nor was there as much density. So when we talk about accessibility issues, when we talk about equity issues, a lot of folks who live in the Alberta Avenue corridor don't have many options for where they can move their vehicles to during a parking ban. I do think there is a balancing act between creating an enforcement system and an enforcement tool. I do think it's a responsibility of every citizen of Edmonton to provide a safe workplace for those snow clearing crews. And I do think that there does need to be a better job from the citizens of acknowledging and adhering to a parking ban. I disagree, however, that increased fines, punitive measures like financial penalties are going to be an effective tool. We've heard from the presentation earlier that communication is an ongoing challenge. I myself have seen a lot of feedback from neighbors that there isn't a good enough job being done to communicate when and where folks are supposed to move their vehicles. And so I'm in full support of reducing the fines from $250 to $100. I do think that there is work that can be done to encourage folks to be more considerate. I think a better communication plan can be put in place, but I sincerely don't believe that fines are going to be an effective measure, and I don't believe that they're going to continue to be effective, regardless of how much time we give them. I also think that collaboration with the local BIAs is very important. We have a lot of voice and a lot of influence in our neighborhoods, both with the business owners, of course, but also with the community members and the citizens that live within those areas. Independent of this particular issue, I'm working with a collaboration of neighbors who are trying to build more accessibility into transit. As a business owner, I think that's a hugely important asset for folks who come into my business. And I think that we can be equally collaborative in helping communicate things like bans on parking and where neighbors should or can park. I think there's lots of opportunities to work directly with your 13 BIAs to help communicate these sorts of things, and we can be a resource for further communication. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate, again, I want to close by saying I do appreciate how much work the city clearing crews have done. I know that this particular year was incredibly challenging, and I think they've done an admirable job working with the resources and the tools they have. Sorry, I also just got a reminder from Eric that we do also want to mention the policy changes. There is a city policy 409K, and we do recommend a change that says the City of Edmonton, through its planning, decision-making, and leadership, will ensure that it provides a safe and reliable winter mobility network for people walking, rolling, biking, and using transit and driving to the City of Edmonton through its planning, decision-making, and leadership. The addition should be the City of Edmonton, through its planning, decision-making, leadership, and collaboration with local BIAs, will ensure that it provides a safe and reliable winter mobility network for people walking, rolling, biking, transit, using transit and driving. I think that collaboration piece is missing. We are a huge part of the infrastructure of the City of Edmonton, and we are a resource. So I just want to close with that recommendation that the policy 409K does include that addition to include collaboration with the local BIAs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Plamondon. We will now go to questions from committee members. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, I think I want to start with Mr. Budnick. You mentioned in your presentation something that I found really intriguing about the, what is good policy and making and what is not. But the origin of the fine change was simply a motion that was put on the floor. There wasn't a report that came complementing a recommendation to increase to 250. It was out of sheer frustration with non-compliance. Or were you aware of that? And what are your thoughts on that policy making?
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that previous decision.
Yeah, so I think about...
I'm a delay on the line. Hearing you very clearly.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you very clearly either. Can you hear me better now?
Sort of.
Your mic doesn't work. Can you hear me better now?
Seem to be important that when fines are in place, they are used to ensure that there is compliance so that city crews can do their job, or that so that people, whether they're driving or whatever other mode they're getting around in, are aware of what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior. We do need to improve compliance with these different rules so that people can do their jobs and people can get around no matter how they're trying to move around the city.
Yeah, can you hear me now better? I'm on a different microphone. But like, what are your thoughts on the report today where it said, even though we increased the fines to 250, we haven't seen an increase in compliance. In fact, it was a 10% compliance. And I think we're all saying the same thing. Like, I actually think the issue isn't we're talking about a dollar amount here, whether it's 250, 150, 100. It's actually the enforcement and the consistent enforcement. And that's what I've heard from Mr. Jones as well. Is that kind of, are we?
Yeah, I agree that enforcement is important. And the higher the fine is, the more money there is for the city to allocate towards enforcement.
Yeah, okay. And I'll leave it there. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, for administration, I'm just curious. I know.
At this time, we're just asking questions to
speakers?
the speakers.
Oh,
yeah.
my apologies then.
So we'll hold off on that then. Thanks.
Then I'm good.
Okay. And Councillor Jans.
Thank you. If I can ask Gus Lewis to come back for a minute. Just wondering your thoughts on if we increase the fines or if we keep the fines at 250, do you think that would, what impact do you think that would have on the morale of the frontline workers who are dealing with the vehicles? Do you think it would like lead to a sense of urgency and prioritization, or do you think it'll just add to more verbal abuse?
I think that if you were to lower it when they're having so much frustrations out there right now with vehicles and trying to do their jobs and them seeing it get lowered, they will think that there's less of a threat happening to having vehicles parked out there, and they will feel like they don't have the support if it gets lowered, because it won't encourage people to move their vehicles. And I know that there's a 10% compliance rate with it being at $250 right now, but I think if you lower to $100, it's not going to change that compliance rate. It's still going to be around 10%. So there needs to be more towards communications. There needs to be more towards going out there and actually ticketing people. I know that if you talk to a lot of folks that go to an Edmonton Elks game in the stadium community, they know that they'll get a fine during a stadium event, and there's cars that are going to get tickets, right? In and around Northlands during K-Days, they know that they're going to get tickets. When a snow event is on, I think that because it's here and there, it doesn't happen all the time, that it's not something that is a normal event for people, that there's really not a threat of getting a ticket. So better communication, more enforcement.
So sometimes I hear, well, I would move my vehicle, but I saw this, or I didn't see the sign, or I saw the text message, but you know, they didn't come for 24 hours, or like just the kind of, sometimes people have said the fines are unfair because of kind of loosey-goosey communications. Is that your experience or your members' experience?
Yeah, the better communication is what I'm hearing from my members. If residents are more aware of it, I know that the city is using all sorts of different types of communications, but I think just because of the fact that a snow event, you know, there might not have been a snow event last year. We might not have went into residential areas last year or years prior. It's not a common thing. That when it does happen, there needs to be more communication, and there needs to be repercussions to it. Like, it's kind of an empty threat when they hear, you know, you're going to get a ticket or you're going to tow. I know in the past, vehicles would get towed around the block, and that wasn't really a threat to a person, because if they didn't move their car, they knew it was going to get towed around the block and put on the avenue instead of the street. And they could just go pick up their car. They had to go find it. Yeah. But if it got towed around the block, it didn't encourage them to actually move their car.
So if they were towed around the block but it came with a ticket, would that lead to higher future compliance?
I don't know. I can't.
Okay.
I just think that there needs to be, you know, some repercussions to not moving your vehicle.
Okay. And that if that money was dedicated towards greater enforcement and snow and ice work, so taxpayers knew it wasn't going to general revenue, it was going to actually improving service, do you think that would, again, make it easier for the operators and the frontline staff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jans. I'm going to take my turn on committee. Actually, Mr. Lewis, can I ask you to come back up again? So I appreciate your commendation of our administration putting out communications and that. Do you think, or do you know from your membership, is it getting out to all communities? And I'm talking culturally diverse communities.
I don't know that. No.
Okay,
I know that one of the things that I did hear from some of them is like, we have signs that are in neighborhoods, so we have big yellow signs that are in neighborhoods. But people come from all different routes, and they might not see that one sign because they might have 3 or 4 routes in which they come to, and the sign is, you know, on one Ave and then down on another Ave. But there's different routes to get onto it, so they might not see the signs, and having more signage down the road might encourage people or make them more aware.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just wondering your perspective there. Mr. Plamondon, you said part of the concern is for your community members is that they don't have anywhere to move their vehicles to. Is that right?
Yeah, if you spend any time on any of the side roads along the Alberta Avenue corridor, there's a lot of older houses that don't have garages. They may not have alternative options for parking. So yeah, there's not really always a lot of options. And I think the previous question also highlights another issue is that a lot of times when we have parking bans, the signage is not fully clear. That was a huge pushback that happened, and I know it's anecdotal, but there was a lot of frustrated neighbors last year during the street sweeping time as to where the signs are placed, and they were not clear as to where you couldn't park. So I think also information is a huge challenge as well.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering, I mean, because, so I guess the alternative, if people can't move their vehicles off the street, then the alternative is that they don't get their street plowed. And I'm just wondering which is better.
Well, I mean, again, if you come down any of the side roads on 118 Ave, we're already not getting our streets plowed. And again, I'm not holding the city accountable for the level of snowfall that happened. And I know, again, they did the best they could with the response, but because of the freeze-thaw cycle, every road that goes, that feeds into 118 Ave, every residential road has massive ruts, which creates a massive safety issue. So the reality is we're not seeing our streets plowed anyways. On the side roads. So I think that also contributes to the frustration from folks. And again, I'm not saying the city is at fault for that, but it's hard for folks to take the need for snow plowing clearance seriously when their streets aren't getting plowed anyways.
Okay, well, I think we're what, about the 50% mark of residential roads being cleared. So I guess patience, but I'm trying to see what the alternative could be. Like I said, because the only thing I see is if they aren't moving their vehicles, then they don't get plowed. But and eventually, I'm hoping all these neighborhoods will get plowed. But what else? I don't know. Do you have any other suggestions or recommendations that to get the streets plowed and not, I guess, inconvenience or penalize people too much?
Well, I mean, I think it sounds harsh, but the reality is, like, again, I am sympathetic to the need for the streets to be plowed. And again, I'm sympathetic to the needs of both the city and the snow clearance staff. So I just don't think financial fines as a consequence are the appropriate approach. They put additional financial barrier on folks who might already be feeling other financial barriers. So if the reality is those streets don't get plowed, then I think that in itself is a consequence that folks might have to live with. And that might, as a message, speak louder than, fines that people can either ignore or get dragged into court over.
Okay, I was hoping you were going to have the magic bullet. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right, that's all I have. And Councillor Morgan was just back on the board for questions to administration. So I'll go to Councillor Salvador.
Yeah, thank you. So just maybe I'll start with Speaker Plamondon as well. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks to the group from Alberta Avenue and BIA for sharing their perspectives on this. Maybe this will be just a clarification. I know, David, you had mentioned recommended changes to some of the language in the current policy. I just wanted to make sure I captured that. I know we talked about this in the past last term, and my understanding was a slight amendment was made, but maybe I'm wrong. So you're in policy C409K. And you were referencing the shared responsibility section, right?
Yes.
Okay, because right now it says maintaining safe Edmonton's business community and Edmontonians collaboration, cooperation, partnership. So just help me understand what change you'd be looking for.
Yeah. So the change specifically we'd be looking for is adding to the city of Edmonton through its planning, decision-making, leadership, and collaboration with local BIAs. Will ensure that it provides a safe and reliable winter mobility network for people walking, rolling, biking, and using transit and driving. And I think the goal here is that there is an opportunity for the BIAs to help support some of these challenges. So going back to Councillor Wright, so I didn't want to use your time actually for that, but we could provide opportunities for businesses to utilize their parking spaces. We could provide opportunities for folks to use our parking during the evening when they're not in use. So again, if we're involved in the collaboration process, we can be advocates for better citizenship for the citizens. We can be advocates for moving your vehicle. We can help with communication. We can help with resources to provide spaces for people to move their vehicles. We're already taking the initiative and doing our own snow clearing on sidewalks for the businesses along the avenue. So the BIAs can be activated to be more of a arm's length organization that can support a lot of these initiatives to the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I think those are really helpful examples too, just around shared parking, help with communication, or even space for people who might not have parking on site. I will direct those to administration when the time is right. I did want to, sorry, Eric, could Speaker Lewis come down for just one more question? Thank you. Appreciate your points around the need for better communication. This might seem like an odd question, but I was learning a little bit more about some of the very forward communication that happens in Montreal with snow removal sirens, where plows will actually let people know that they are coming and they need to move their cars by having a siren or horn. Thoughts on something like that? Do you know if we've ever explored that?
If people are home, maybe, but there's a lot of vehicles that are parked on the road and people aren't home. Also, I don't think a siren at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 1 a.m. would be the greatest thing.
That's fair. Yeah, just again, looking for some of those creative solutions and trying to learn from other municipalities. Have you noticed a difference in terms of the change to the yellow signage? At least from an anecdotal perspective, it seems like it's more visible, bright.
I believe it's more visible and bright, but I think there's a little bit difference when you have in the past where, and this is on my own personal opinion, in the past there would be, like especially during street sweeping, there'd be little A-frame signs all down the block parked at every third or fourth house. So when you got out of your vehicle, that sign was staring at you in the face, like you couldn't miss it. Versus when you have a sign at the end of the block, it's easy to say, well, I didn't see the sign. But there's that. And then also on top of that, when you have a whole bunch of signs down the block, your neighbors are all kind of seeing the signs too. And then they see you parking there. Your neighbors are kind of going to be like, hey, why are you parking there? Like you can't miss the sign. It's right in front of your face.
Yeah, there's some sort of mutual accountability there. And sorry, you said that was for spring sweep, not necessarily for, or did we used to do that for?
Yeah, way back in the day, and I'm just going off my own personal experience, I had them in front of my house.
Okay.
And I remember parking around in my backyard because they were there.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador and Councillor Knack. Or, I'm sorry, Mayor Knack.
Whichever, it's fine. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Maybe to Speaker Plamondon again, I just wanted to check something you said in your presentation, and I wanted to double check this, is that you had suggested that a lot of the homes sort of in and around the Alberta Ave area might not have garages, and I'm only just doing a quick Google Maps scan from sort of like 122nd Ave to 115th Avenue, sort of from 82nd Street to 97th Street. But like from what I'm seeing, and maybe I'm not reading these correctly, but my quick scan of Google Maps seems to show, gosh, it's got to be 98% have either a garage or a parking pad, and so I want to know if I'm maybe if you're referring to a different area or if I'm missing something, because I hear this tension between what the right level of enforcement is, and if there was a large area without alternatives, then I think we do need to have that conversation. I'm just not seeing that from the sort of Google Maps overlay right now.
Sure, and I don't have empirical data, but what I can tell you is that anyone who drives down any of the side streets, 94th Street, 92nd Street, like any of the, basically any side arterial road going north to south from 118 Ave to, let's call it 122nd Ave, or even to the wall on Yellowhead. As it is right now, those roads are already filled during summer, during non-road clearing. It's almost impossible for two vehicles to pass each other because of the amount of vehicles that are parked on the side streets. So what that indicates to me is that folks are either multi-vehicle households, and oftentimes when you have a lot of those houses, they're rentals where you might have 2, 3, 4 different residents living in those households, and each of those residents has to have their own vehicle. So there already is a parking issue within our neighborhoods. There's already a huge amount of concentration of vehicles that seemingly don't have other alternatives to park. I think most folks that would have an option of parking in a parking pad or parking in a garage would choose to do so rather than clog up the arterial streets. But if you spend any time driving down any of those side streets, you will see rows and rows of vehicles parking on both sides of the street.
Right,
The other
yeah.
factor is apartments. There's a large number of high density housing apartments and otherwise in our neighborhoods that don't always have suitable parking or adequate parking. Again, for if you have 2 or 3 adults living in a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, that's 2 or 3 vehicles. It really fundamentally comes down to the fact that we unfortunately live in a very heavy and aggressive car culture where every individual needs to have a car. My parents, 2 people living in a house, have 3 vehicles that they have to manage, which is of course not the standard or the norm, but it's not that uncommon for folks to have multiple vehicles in a household. So that's fundamentally what it comes down to. Yes,
Yeah.
there are parking pads, there are garages, but obviously those are not being adequately utilized even when it's not a parking ban situation. And that evidence is clear anytime you spend any time in our neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's always the tension point. Yeah, I always struggle with this. I still remember probably my very first year. I remember somebody that's door knocking talked to me about how people will store a couple $100 of junk in their garage and then their $20,000 or $30,000 vehicle on the street, and it always seemed odd to me about it, but it's a tension point and trying to figure out, similar to Councillor Wright, what's the right way to get more folks, especially outside of parking ban. I get it, like if folks want to park on the street versus their garage, great. Just during that parking ban, how do we best accomplish this task here, because it is causing this challenge. And I mean, thankfully I know for deep freeze we saw a lot of clearing done up and down the neighboring streets, but yeah, that's why I just wanted to check with you, because it doesn't seem like they don't have it. It's just maybe it's not being utilized. So that was the part I wanted to better understand. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think part of it just comes down to, like everyone is basing this off of our own experiences, right? I'm fortunate enough and privileged enough to have a 2-car garage. I only have 1 vehicle in my house, but if I had a second vehicle, I would have a place to have it. But a lot of folks do rent and may not have access or control to that garage, right? So we have to just always be considerate of expanding beyond what our own perspectives or experiences are, because not everyone shares those.
That's right. And 118th Ave, I was just parked on, what was it, 88th Street probably on Saturday. The way I was remembering the signage, I think there's restrictions for parking for sure during the peak hours Monday to Friday. Is it just peak hours during Monday to Friday?
That's correct. It's 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then 1600 to 1800.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So because I'm just trying to think about other alternatives if you're in one of those locations where you didn't have access to on-site parking. Where's the nearest on-street parking option? And depending on time of day, it could be 118th Ave, but it's not a guarantee if it's during the peak hour. So, okay, great. Those are my questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mayor Knack. And Councillor Morgan does have questions for the speakers, so go ahead,
I guess
please.
I do have those questions. Question for Aaron Budnick, I guess. Question is, I'm hearing lots of issues about communications here and from constituents. So thoughts on improving those communications?
Yeah, this is something that certainly could probably be improved in a lot of areas, not just with snow removal, but I'll say I'm someone that gets around the city without a car. I don't own one at all. I see the signs in every neighborhood I travel through. I get text messages from the city. I get emails from the city. I see the city posting on social media. I see all of the councillors present posting on social media about the parking bans. It seems like there's a lot of communication. It could probably be improved. And I've heard some examples of some neighborhoods where signage might have got missed potentially, but I don't think communications is primarily the problem, though we could probably improve it a little bit.
Okay, thanks. And given your background without a car, and you bike a lot, I know that personally, but do you have any thoughts on, from your perspective, inequity around the snow?
Yeah. I'd love to speak to something that Mr. Plamondon had mentioned. It is certainly a punishment when drivers don't move their vehicle and the street doesn't clear, but it's not just a punishment to the people that didn't move their vehicles. It's a punishment to the people who are getting around by other modes, or people that are trying to walk to a bus stop, or even people just going for a walk around their neighborhood, pushing a stroller or walking their dog, or who need to get around with a wheelchair or have some other kind of mobility constraint. So I'm a little concerned that pulling back and trying to say that it's just a punishment to drivers ignores the fact that a lot of other people are punished by decisions they themselves didn't make.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan and Councillor Rutherford. Your questions are for administration?
That's what, yeah, I put in chat.
Okay, so no other questions for our speakers. Thank you all for joining online and in person. And we will now move to questions of administration. And Councillor Moore, oh, no, sorry, Councillor Rutherford, you're up.
Thank you. I guess I just want to start with, in the report, it says that the parking bans went from 100 to 250, taking into account cost of towing. And I thought that was a bit interesting to see in the report. Could you elaborate on what you meant by that? Because now we're hearing like there's no money for towing, there's capacity issues with towing. I'm just trying to unpack that a little bit.
I think there was some early conversation that part of that fine would help to offset the cost of towing. And as we know, the towing that we did only amounted to about 10% of the cars. And so really, you know, I would suggest the towing wasn't super effective.
But that towing wasn't paid for through the revenue from parking fines?
No, and in fact, none of my lines of business are directly paid for from any revenues from fines. It just goes back into general coffers. So I think it was more about, you know, it helps us balance the overall books if we're able to kind of compensate for that cost of the towing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to kind of unpack with it when in your presentation. So I think there's sort of we all agree. There's sort of the three things: the fees and the certainty of actually you can have a fine, but if people are like the city's not going to ticket me anyway, what's the point? Like I'm not worried about it, or the odds of me getting ticketed are so low that I'm not going to comply, right? And then also the lack of ability for what we're hearing from Mr. Lewis about the slowing down, missing of roads because there's non-compliance, all of these things. It's kind of all three: the towing, the enforcement, and the ticketing, as well as communication, which I want to give kudos to administration. Since I've been on council, I've seen a huge improvement. We can always improve more, but I've seen a huge improvement. So I guess I'm just struggling with, why are we having such a heavy fine, but we're not doing more on the enforcement and the towing? Like, why is that the heavy?
Well, the towing was initially in the 2022 to 2023, the one-time funding that we got. We did some towing then. We managed to get 422 vehicles towed, which was not a huge number compared to how many we ticketed that year. And again, last year, we got some funding to tow in the remaining part of 2025, and we were only able to tow 33
I get the
vehicles.
recap of, and I'm fully aware of things, though I do have questions about the 4-year budget. We did increase snow funding, so I'm confused as to why 1.19 million was reduced for enforcement staff, specifically around parking. At the same time, I don't remember that being a part of that discussion, so I definitely want to unpack that. But I guess I'm just trying to get to a point of, we have a $250 fee. We've had that fee in place since 2022, and compliance as of this current phase parking ban is 10%. So the theory that we keep doing what we're doing, it's clearly still not working, whether we keep the fine at $250 after today or not.
I think, Councillor Rutherford, to add to that, there's only 5 officers actually enforcing citywide. So that's the crux of the problem.
Yeah, so what do we need to do?
We would need
to
council
set up the next 4-year budget. And the Edmontonians' expectations of what I'm hearing is, if we're going to have a parking ban, how are we actually making sure that it's enforceable and that the city crews can do the work that they need to do?
Yeah, you asked about the reduction from 1.8 or 1.9 to 300 grand. Essentially, that was the service package that went forward to council at the time, included the 15 officers that we had for that pilot project in 22 and 23.
But it was unfunded?
And council made the decision to fund that to 20%. So we could only get 5 officers compared to the 15 that we'd had the year prior. And so that is what is in our base budget right now. So over the last week, we've flexed in all kinds of different directions. Over the weekend, we had about 17 people out on the street, and I can say that in the last week, we've written just over 2,600 tickets.
Okay, I'll come back for another round. Good conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Morgan.
I've got lots of questions.
So if it was
I guess I'm wondering, how are we currently coordinating between tow trucks and bylaw officers?
Your microphone's not on, Councillor.
Sorry about that. I'll go again then. How are we currently coordinating between tow trucks and bylaw officers with snowplows?
I think the most important coordination is between Caitlin's team and where they are plowing, and us getting our officers on the street just ahead of time to try to, get people to move. The visibility of some of those activities, hopefully will get people out of the house. I know a couple of our peace officers were helping push cars stuck cars out of the snow drifts just before the plows were coming last week. But certainly when we were doing towing, we have a contractor who's on call. Again, we are but one client of many, and so if they're tied up boosting somebody else's car, they may not have the equipment to come and help us out. And I think that was one of the limiting factors with the idea of towing people off the roads. We weren't able to keep up with the capacity of getting them cleared in time.
To answer your question, Councillor Morgan, we're not towing.
We're not towing.
So the coordination that Chief Jones referred to is between my operations team and his operations team. So that's why that scheduling is really important. We're in collaboration with them where we're going. We have historical data to show where there's compliance or non-compliance in previous years, if we've had challenges in previous years as well within specific neighborhoods. So we have that inside kind of intel, I would say, where we're communicating directly with Chief Jones's teams to say this is where we're going. Also, when we're boots on the ground, we have inspectors who are going out, doing drive-bys, checking on conditions, and they're relaying that information back. So there's a ton of work that happens behind the scenes and being able to mobilize across 12,000 kilometers of roadway.
Okay. So story time here. My car broke down on the white mud on December 31st, and because I have AMA, it was about an hour for a tow. If I didn't have AMA and I wasn't on the white mud, it would have been 72 hours before my car would have been towed. Do we know the capacity within the city right now with city tow trucks and private tow trucks to actually enforce our parking ban?
So city tow trucks do not tow private vehicles.
Okay. Are we using private tow trucks as part of this?
Not right now. We had a contractor in place when we did have a budget for towing, and again, we were one client amongst many for that contractor.
If we had that contract back in place, would we have capacity in the city to tow trucks?
I think it's an existing contract. It's just we don't have any funds to do that towing, and even then, it is reliant on that contractor. So I think we would need a wholesale reexamination of how we were doing the towing before we would recommend using funds to continue with the towing package.
I think to add to that, Councillor Morgan, when it's snowing, it's of high demand. It's one of those services, no different than emergency vehicle services. So is there a way to have them on call for that? Potentially, but that involves retainers, budget, and a bunch of other things to be able to have them at our disposal, to be able to utilize them and have it so that our work is a higher priority than they would be pulling somebody off, let's say a ditch on the Anthony Henday is a great example. So they too are prioritizing calls, no different to what we do. So if everybody's in that same funnel and wanting the same service at the same time, what becomes priority in those moments?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I'll leave it there for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Chair Wright. I'm trying to keep my questions in relation to what's actually in the report, because there's so many other things we could be discussing here, but I think we need to keep it on the fee amount. Is that correct? Or can we be talking more like in general about snow removal?
Well, I would defer to the chair in terms of what is, within the realm of discussion. As administration, we are prepared to speak to the report in front of you.
I would prefer that we do stick to the report. I mean, because otherwise we can get so thrown off track. I think,
yes,
what's
because
going
I have
on
lots of
today.
questions. However, I'll stick to what was actually presented in the report. and talking about, you know, the different ways to have behavioral change. Do we know how long it takes to expect behavioral change? Because I know that it was only in 2021, I believe, when we were first elected, that it was just more of an education, and it was after that that we started enforcement. How long is it expected that behavioral change would take?
I would only be wagering a guess at this point. I think, you know, it really is situational dependency, and I would suggest for sure consistent efforts. And so what we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years is every year it's kind of a different plan. There's more officers, there's fewer officers, there's a higher fine. Sometimes we're towing, sometimes we're not. So I will say that the way that it's shifted around in the last few years hasn't provided us that consistent approach that we've been able to, you know, systematically approach it to see that behavior change.
Okay.
So it'd be over a number of years that we would look to
Right.
kind of reinforce that behavior.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have 5 officers, correct? That are specifically for snow and ice.
Yes, we hire them seasonally. They address parking bans, and then when they're not addressing parking bans, they're being proactive and supporting the other municipal enforcement officers in dealing with snow on sidewalk complaints, all of those other priority calls that we get seasonally.
Okay. And what is the priority, the sidewalks or the parked vehicles?
They take on, Keith, I don't know if you want to jump in there, but they take on the parking bans as their primary role.
Yeah, that's correct. Parking bans is priority, and then when there is no parking ban, they do the proactive enforcement in high traffic areas, high risk areas, in dealing with removing snow so that we citizens can have an accessibility availability.
Okay. And what hours do they work?
So they're currently Monday to Friday, and they work from 7 in the morning till 4 p.m. When there's a parking ban, they will shift their schedule to try and do what we can within those times.
Yeah, and last week we extended those shifts to 12 hours from an 8-hour shift, so they're all working overtime. And then, of course, brought in some of our contracted parking enforcement officers and our peace officers to support as well. I think one of the issues that we've had in the past is we've shifted our regular duty municipal enforcement officers to help support the parking bans as well, but then we get so backlogged on the snow and ice on sidewalk complaints that we're chasing our tail for the rest of the season.
I think to add as well, Councillor Principe, is that this weekend with the adjustment in the residential blading, there was a surge of enforcement that also went out this weekend. That's not typical because we don't normally clear on weekends, but working really closely with Chief Jones's team, they also mobilized enforcement this weekend as well.
Okay. And as I said, I have many other things I'd like to discuss, but it's not really in the report. This kind of might be, though, have we ever thought of changing the term instead of calling it phase 2? Because phase 2 may not resonate with people. Can we call it residential?
We have
phase residential?
Yeah, we have a policy review that's coming to council in August of this year, and these are good suggestions and things that we can take into consideration for that, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Principe. Okay, so in the report, it talks about the amazing communication. In what language? Just English?
I will have to get back to you, Councillor Wright, on that one. It's a good question.
Because my concern is it's, we've got people doing an online survey in English and showing that, there's great awareness of it. But I can tell you from my email inbox, there's a lot of people that aren't aware of it. And so that is my concern, is that we aren't reaching the full breadth of our community.
So, Councillor Wright, I think it's a good point for feedback for us. We have had requests for different languages and a request to translate, which we have done. But I think this is a good takeaway for us in order to see how we can broaden that through different languages or different communications.
Okay, thank you. And I think Mr. Jones talked about, I think it was you, about the challenges in certain neighborhoods with with enforcement or with non-compliance, sorry. And so does that maybe relate as well to some language barriers?
I'm not sure if we've ever done a holistic overview, but I'm not sure that we have the data on, you know, languages spoken by household or anything like that that we could pull from.
There used to be demographics per ward, I know. I think that was broken down by neighborhoods. Is that information not available?
I just want to really quickly clarify, Councillor Wright, as well. For snow notice notifications, we currently have them in English, French, Mandarin, Punjabi, and Tagalog as well.
Okay, for notifications, okay. And then how do people learn that they can sign up for those types of notifications?
Through the City of Edmonton website. So through those, you can go and look at it on edmonton.ca/snow clearing or snow removal, pardon me. They have an actual section on there that has them in the different languages where you can adjust that over and be able to see and learn around the snow clearing activities as well as the notifications in that language.
Okay, so that's something that, yeah, that I, as a councillor, then can notify people of and be aware of that.
And
okay.
I think as a note for that, Councillor Wright, that's something that we can highlight in our communications as well, as there is different options so that people are aware off the get-go. So that's a good point of feedback.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just wondering, there was also mention of the additional dollars that are being spent right now on enforcement. Where is that coming from? Existing budgets, Ms. Flaman, or is that going to be something that we'll see as an adjustment in the spring?
This contributes to our structural budget variance.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And the number of tickets, you've got the data on how many were issued. I was trying to go through and see, do we have a percentage of how many of what has been paid?
Apologies. It's a little bit nebulous to track, but we're at about an 80% payment rate for the tickets on parking fines.
Oh, okay. So I'm not really seeing then justification of either lowering it or looking at reduced amounts for early payment. To me, 80% paid sounds like a pretty good.
Yeah, and again, that's through the court system, and there are lots of reasons why they might get changed, altered, or withdrawn.
Okay. 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 And I think that is all the question. Oh, I do have one question on the. Okay, if there is non-compliance on a certain road or street or whatever, how would residents know that their road was not cleared due to non-compliance, not just, oops, we missed it?
So residents would know it was, if we aren't able to clear it, Councillor Wright, we will make the call on, does it make sense to clear it right now due to parked cars on the road? Is the quality good enough, or do we mobilize to a different area and come back? Those updates will go through the text or email subscription that we've rescheduled the area, or through the online Snow and Ice plow map. Typically the reasoning around it isn't normally the first thing that we lead with. As an example, we had some areas where we actually had to demob from there due to worker safety, due to threats from the public. So we had to demobilize from those areas and delay them and reschedule them. So typically the reasoning around it isn't always the first thing that we lead with, but there are mechanisms for them to know that we have rescheduled those areas.
Okay, so I do, my time is up and I will manage that. Okay, let me see. I guess we will go to non-members of committee before we go to second round of members. So Councillor Salvador.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to follow up on some of the points that were raised by the speakers from Alberta Avenue. And just to start off, Alberta Avenue is scheduled for residential blading, I believe, today.
That's correct. And ahead of the Deep Freeze Festival that occurred last week as well, we did a bunch of work at the key intersections, alleyways, as well as the roadways to support the festival, which also benefited the residential area.
Okay, and I was really interested in the point that was raised by Speaker Plamondon about opportunities for collaboration with BIAs as it relates to helping with communication or even shared parking opportunities so that people have additional spaces to move their vehicles. How are we currently viewing those kinds of opportunities, and would it be helpful and supportive to have some additional direction or policy clarity that opportunity should be explored and investigated?
Yeah, so the BIs are important partners for us. Within Parks and Road Services specifically, I actually have a team that liaises directly with the 13 BIAs and determining what their priorities are, how we can work collaboratively together. We work very closely with Alberta Avenue, but also seeing what opportunities exist, whether that is through extra parking opportunities or whatever else. So we already work very closely with them. They are one of our main communicators when we move into different phases of snow and ice. We also have kickoff sessions with them at the beginning of each season and at the end of each season to let them know what we're doing operationally and how we're approaching it. With the respect to the comment around alternative places to park, Edmontonians, regardless if they're near a BIA, can do parking along P2. So if those are already being cleared, they can park there. They can park in private lots. They can park in other areas within the vicinity, recognizing sometimes it does require potentially some travel or using alternative modes to get back to their residence, but there typically is places that cars can be moved to.
Do similar levels of collaboration and proactive communication exist for community leagues? Are they also our partners where we sort of give them the opportunity to share that through their networks?
Very important partners as well for us. So when we move into the different phases within the parking bans or even the snow clearing, we are providing them updates. I will say that one of the things that we do recognize is giving them a bit more information of what to expect. So us going in there is one thing and saying, hey, we're doing this, we're clearing it, but what can you expect? So no different that we were clear around, there is windrows or there's going to be X, Y, and Z when we're in those areas. We do recognize that giving a little bit more granular detail to the community leagues would actually be of benefit in order to set expectations.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really great point. My time is going quickly. Speaker Lewis brought up how in the past we used A-frames actually up and down the residential streets. Can you just provide a little bit of background there? Why did we switch away from that, or was that just for spring sweep and not?
Yeah. It's for specific programs, so I'll answer quickly so you can answer your questions. But those are for specific programs, spring sweep being one of them. If we're going in and doing things like microsurfacing or patch paving in areas, when you have windrows or snow accumulation, it makes it really hard for those A-frames to be set up properly in a way. Also, on top of that, we have very limited resources. So the folks that set up those signage are the same folks that are clearing your bike lanes and your active pathways. So in order to set up broad communication through signage like that, it does require resourcing. So we are putting out the signage that we are resourced and budgeted for.
Okay, Kate, that's helpful. Thank you for the insights there. Kate, coming to the actual fine amount. So just for a little bit of background here, my understanding is that, of course, it was 2022 when administration recommended the increase. Is that correct? From 100 to 250? And the rationale there was to bring it into alignment with most bylaw infractions and to support additional deterrence.
Whilst I know the history on it, I can't quite remember if it was council-driven or admin-driven on that one.
Okay, I would appreciate knowing that. When I was looking back in reports, what I found was it was included in a 2022 report as an administration recommendation. And the reason I'm asking this is I'm trying to understand what process does administration follow for making any recommendations related to changes to fine amounts. Is there a consistent cycle or methodology that's used for updating our fine amounts?
I'm not sure if Mike Gunther's online. Might defer that to our city solicitor.
But perhaps if we are waiting for him to join, usually we take a lot of our cues for our jurisdictional scans, so we do a pretty exhaustive look across the country to ensure that we are, in the ballpark of what other jurisdictions have done, but clearly there is a legal component that we consider.
And seeing that we are out of time, you'll come back. Councillor Salvador, thank you. And Councillor Jans, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really appreciate the time today and appreciate the efforts of all of the folks involved in this. I know it's been just a Herculean month here. I guess I don't support any recommendation to the fine, but I was wondering, is it possible to just set a standard, like all of our fines be indexed to inflation going forward? So we're not, because I think what also happened is we have some fines that are still set at like a very old rate, haven't been changed since conception, and then now, many years later, it's not the same weight that it should.
Yeah, you identify what we call inflationary erosion of our various fees, and I think it's something that we have to look into.
So is it possible, like legally, that we could say, yes, we pass a bylaw and it will be adjusted to inflation and annually change?
I can look into that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the mechanics would be or what kind of policy direction we might require from council to activate that, but I'll take that away.
Thank you. And would administration agree with kind of like, if we go back to first principles, like a philosophical statement, street parking is a partnership and street parking is a privilege, not a right? Like public parking is not a right that somebody has. Is that, are we operating off that same kind of?
We're operating off of that. Snow clearing and parking on the streets is a joint responsibility.
Right. So we acknowledge that, like, if someone is going to park on the street, it is not their private property, that there's certain obligations or they are expected to participate in this partnership in some way.
City streets are public, so therefore they have to adhere to any parking bans or any operational requirements that exist.
So I heard from an elected official in Sherwood Park that the police, the RCMP, are going to park cars and calling them. They can run your number in there and call you and say, hey, Michael, please move your car. Is that true?
I don't know what the RCMP is doing, but I will flag that.
I see a nod from your colleague. I apologize.
I will flag that our municipal enforcement officers don't have access to the provincial registries database that would be needed in order to do that.
Yeah, that's correct. In Sherwood Park, they are calling. In fact, my wife got a phone call for the car that was parked out there. But Chief Jones is correct that we don't currently have that ability within community standards at this time.
So I think we need to, it's not just about the fines, it's not just about the communication. I think we really need to move to a model where if you are parking on an Edmonton street, you must register your vehicle, you must get an annual parking pass of some sort, so we know who owns that vehicle. We have a cell number for that vehicle, we have an email for that vehicle, and we can really micro-target if you are parking in that neighborhood. We know who you are, who owns the vehicle, etc., so we can help, whether it's string sweep or snow removal. What would it take for, I imagine an unfunded service package, but what would it take for administration to implement that kind of a, because we talk about communications being the gap, but what's the subscription rate on our notifications? How many people have subscribed to the notifications for?
Yeah, it's over 59,000 from 42,000.
So that's less than 10%.
That's correct. But I will see that year over year, Councillor, we have seen increases in that, so it's gaining traction. But if we can, have a city of 1.2 million people, it would be great to see that increase.
100%. And I'm hearing in Sherwood Park they have 100% compliance because the police can go in the database. And I'm not hearing that we can. So we, absent the provincial government giving us that database, we'll have to create our own for Edmontonians because ultimately then I think if people knew and that you had to register your vehicle, you're getting a text message to your neighborhood. It'll remove any ambiguity about warnings, remove any ambiguity about, because that's the excuse I hear the most, well, I didn't see the signs. So I think we need to, given this horrendous winter we had, I'm hearing from neighbors, they want to see dramatic changes. And I'm not seeing any sympathy even on a local Russian social media site. I'm seeing commentary that is very much against please move your vehicles. So I guess what my question would be, if we can either A, create a database, or B, would the province just share with bylaw the database of all the phone numbers and we can use that?
Vehicle registry database is not something that the province shares with just everyone. It's shared for law enforcement purposes, but perhaps not ours.
But RCMP are using it to call people and say, please move your vehicle.
Well, the RCMP are the police of jurisdiction in Sherwood Park. So the Edmonton Police Service has that database as well. I don't think the Edmonton Police Service, I mean, I can't speak for them, has the capacity to send out officers to run every plate, especially when we're seeing the numbers that we are, 2,600 and some tickets just in the last week from our limited officers,
Got it.
That's a lot of phone calls.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morgan?
Thanks. Is there a target for the percentage of Edmonton households subscribed for parking notifications?
1.2 million.
Right on. What are we doing to reach 1.2 million then?
Everything we can. So we are putting everything out from social media campaigns. We have advertisements, radio we've added this year. I know in my own personal network, I tell everybody to sign up for it. So really is around getting awareness, understanding the benefit of signing up for it.
Awareness of that subscription service.
Correct.
Okay.
But also awareness of the benefit of that subscription service as well.
Sorry?
Awareness of the benefit of subscribing.
Yeah, okay. Do we know, we done a deep dive into why 54% of residents don't feel they've had enough information about our snow clearing?
Not specifically, so that was based on the survey that we had. We did do a holistic look to see if we needed to change our communication on that, which is why we added in the radio pieces, but also doing the proactive PSAs and getting out there in front of media and letting them know what's coming. So we plan to continue to keep enhancing that communication and letting folks know about it, but also as well, folks can go and seek out that information if they need to as well. So leveraging the City of Edmonton website, leveraging social media, leveraging the tools that are out there for them to learn about service clearing and the service levels.
Kind of I don't know if it's a weird question or not, but is there any possibility that we can implement automatic enrollment for parking ban notifications when residents pay property taxes?
I think when, if we look back to email subscriptions, people don't like to be signed up for things that they don't sign up for. So there is some governance that has to come into piece of you signing up proactively for being communicated to, especially through push notifications like that.
Could we just have an opt-out instead of an opt-in?
I think that's something we can take away and look into. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's
So
good.
just confirmed, actually, Councillor Morgan, people have to opt in to receive communications. There's a privacy law around it. So no, we can't force people to sign up.
Okay. But we could have it as an option during.
No, because it's part of the Canada's anti-spam legislation, so we cannot do that.
But we could we have an ask at when they pay their property taxes if they would like to opt in for notifications?
That I can take away and speak to taxation about.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, just trying to wrap up this conversation because like where this generated from was really an equity lens. And even in the report, it talks about, you know, I do look at it, it's like it's a really good a percentage of people that are aware, but there is still a gap, right? And so when we're charging those fines. But I think what I want to try to get to today is, if not changing the fees, what else are we doing to get compliance then? So if we're not reducing the fine, because I'm not hearing the will to do that today. I'm, you know, hearing from the public, hearing from the speakers today, overall, that's not the will. What do we need to do to make sure that you are adequately resourced to have that, to create that certainty that if there's a parking ban and you don't move, there is a high probability of consequences, whereas right now it's, I would say, very low. What do we need to do, and what direction, if any, do you need from council today to set that up for the next 4-year budget?
Well, I would say we've talked about that in the past. We did have the service package in for 15 snow and ice control officers, and that was funded to 20% by the last council.
So was the base 0 at that time?
Yeah, my recollection, and maybe Keith can chime in, but my recollection is before we started this program, we were using our parking enforcement contract. But again, that pulls it away from, all of those other priority.
Well, and this is the thing, and like Councillor Jans and I were just interviewed the other day about like parking writ large and how big of a conversation it is. Like there's clearly between curbside management strategy, between phase 2 parking bans and phase 1 parking bans, between all of the things that we're experiencing, there needs to be, I think, a conversation about how do we make sure that you're equipped with the resources you need to make sure that the workers can do their work safely and effectively, to make sure that compliance goes up from 10% over time, that we're seeing that trajectory. What if any direction do you need today to have that conversation or to set that up? Whether we end up at deciding at budget or not, like I own that, we own that as a collective if we don't fund it. But I do think, I don't want it to not be part of that conversation as we do a prioritization.
Well, again, I would point to the success that we had when we had 15 officers. I think we were able to more consistently, approach the program, make sure that we were everywhere that Caitlin's team was, or as best we could with 15. I think with 5, we're pretty stretched, as we're finding. And so that consistency just isn't there.
So in short, do you need direction for an unfunded service package for the 4-year budget?
I think if it's the will of council to increase resourcing, Councillor, then any direction from council would be appreciated. But I will add, in May, we are coming back to council in order to update on our curbside management strategy around our parking program, which will include components for expansion of automated parking enforcement.
Automated parking enforcement includes parking ban enforcement?
Correct.
Okay, so you're saying maybe just receive this for information today, but knowing that that would likely be a desire at that broader conversation of parking writ large.
Correct. I would say when we present that report to council in May, we can talk about automated parking enforcement and then any parking related resources in order to enforce current curbside parking.
And will you be coming at that report with recommendations, or will it be more, again, just sort of conditioning for then direction for the 4-year budget?
It'll be for information. If council decides to provide direction after that, then we can absolutely adapt.
Okay, that, I'm fine to move receipt of information. I think people do want to speak to this, so yeah, I'll move receipt of information.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Before we get to Councillor Salvador with questions, I think we have some visitors in the room with us today from City Hall School. It's a grade 6 class from Michael Strumbitsky. Welcome, everyone. I think we get a round of applause. And your counselor, is Karen Tang from Ward Garahio, and she is online. I don't know if we can see her online, but I know she always enjoys having her, the classes from her ward come by. So, welcome. Right now today we are in our committee meeting talking about the fines for people who don't move their vehicles to get their streets plowed. So you might want to stick around and listen to that. But I'm just wondering, do we have a mayor for their own mock council? So we have 2 mayors. Awesome.
Only one is here, though.
Okay. Well, our mayor is online as well, so maybe the other mayor from the class is online too. Mayor, would you like to come up to our podium here by that screen? I'm going to ask you a couple questions. First of all, I'm going to ask you what your name is. Brady? Well, welcome, and welcome to the rest of the class. And Brady, are you doing a mock council?
Yep.
What are you going to be discussing?
Why we should implement toll roads.
Oh, interesting. I would really like to know what your decision is on that. And both groups of our mock councils are doing the same?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? You connect back with Councillor Tang and let her know what that decision is, and then maybe we might have the same discussion here at council. Okay? Thank you very much. Bye-bye. All right. Councillor Salvador.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up, so when we previously used parking enforcement, or the folks from our parking enforcement contract to do parking bans, what did that mean for our capacity? How many people did we have out through that?
So what we would do is we would allocate as many from the parking enforcement availability. So what we were doing was taking them away from their regular core duties and assigning them. So we could have anywhere between 15 to 30 at any given time. But what we found was, as you know, then the backlog of abandoned vehicles there's no parking enforcement done in downtown and residential areas, in commercial areas. So that was the sort of the impact, what necessitated us moving towards suggesting that we go to 15 SIOs that were dedicated for that.
Right. So currently, we're pulling from peace officers.
No,
or no.
Currently there are only 5 snow and ice.
Right.
And then to ramp up to support PARs, we did activate additional parking enforcement. We brought officers in, and we activated our community peace officers as well.
Okay. So recognizing, yes, 5 is the base, got that. But
5 is
like
the base.
today, as of today, we have pulled more folks in. And I'm just, like the parking enforcement contract folks, those are part of the people who are being pulled in right now?
Correct.
Yes, okay. Okay, thank you. I want to come back to the question I was asking just around our cycle for updating our fines. Do we have an answer on that?
Yeah, I was able to get in touch with our acting city solicitor. He says his regrets. He is hosting another meeting that he wasn't able to reschedule, but he did share that they take into account other jurisdictions and generally said it to be a sufficient enough deterrent without being unnecessarily punitive. So that's some of the
And is there
guardrails.
is there a regular cycle that all of our fines are reviewed and looked at? I'm learning a little bit about how this conversation came about. It does sound like it was, to my earlier point, council directed, but then there was a subsequent report, etc. Is there a better, more sequential way to update our fine amounts? And to Councillor Janz's earlier point, opportunities to ensure that we're not seeing erosion in the efficacy of those fines over time.
Well, currently, anytime a bylaw comes up for its regular review and renewal along a schedule, that is when we typically would look at the fines. But we can certainly take this away and have a more robust review of all the fines. I know that with our recent work on public spaces bylaw, animal care and control, the larger bodies of work would have already had a recent review, but your point is taken, and we'll see if we can get some consistency and regularity in our review.
Great, and I'll work on some wording for a motion to that effect.
Thank you. Just
Yep.
to tie in your question from your last round, I will also add that it was an admin request to change to the 250, and the rationale at that point was bringing it in line with similar bylaw infractions. It, for whatever reason, had been left alone for a while, and so it was kind of playing catch up with some other bylaw infractions, and that certainly was the also just the noted non-compliance at that point. It was an additional deterrent.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. That is helpful, and it just makes me wonder, are there other areas or violations that might also need to be looked at? So thanks again.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Chair Wright. I have a question about bylaw, the officers. If someone challenges their ticket and go to bylaw court, do the officers have to attend?
Yes, that's part of their job duties.
Taking them away from?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wow, that was the quickest round. Okay. All right. Seeing no more questions on the board, I think Councillor Rutherford, you were prepared to put forward a motion, were you?
I did put forward the motion.
Okay. Oh, yes, you did. Okay. And the clerk does have that?
Yes, it was just a receipt for information.
Yeah, okay. So to speak then, we can sign up. Okay, Councillor Rutherford. Oh, that's your motion though, but that will close it. So anybody else on committee wishing to speak to this motion? No? Then Councillor Jans, please.
Thank you very much to the committee for letting a non-member jump in here. First of all, just wanted to say and start this with a full-throated thank you to all of the staff everywhere in the city, from Eddie to Craig to Caitlin to everyone who's been out there the folks who are answering the calls, who are getting our 311 requests, who are the yard bosses, the folks on the graders, the contractors, anyone, our bylaw folks, anyone out there who is working on this once in a 30-year event. I had the privilege of stopping by a yard on Saturday night briefly to drop off some donuts, and I can tell you I saw a lot of weary eyes, and I saw a lot of very, very fragile tempers, that people have been at this. People are not sleeping. People have given up their holiday with loved ones. People are working around the clock. I don't even want to know what our overtime bill is right now. But I need administration, because I said at one point, I don't want to name names, but at one point I said in a room to people, look, my office is getting thank yous. My office is getting gratitude. People are saying, thank you, you've done when you get to us, you're doing a good job. And somebody kind of barked under their breath at me, being like, well, we're not hearing it. We're not hearing it. And I need them to hear from the council table all the way down that, yes, Edmontonians are appreciative. Edmontonians are very thankful. You deserve a safe workplace. You deserve a safe street. And that your work is quite literally saving lives based on some of the car accidents that we've seen here. So I encourage everyone, give them a honk, give them a wave, get your car out of the way. Anyone who pulled me over on the side said, why the hell are you guys tolerating parking on the street? This is ridiculous. Anybody who looks out the window knows that it snowed. How can they say, oh, well, I didn't know you were coming? They know. People were very, again, thin. Tempers are flaring because it just, at this point, 3 weeks in, the idea that the staff are saying we have to skip a block because of the parked cars, we have to come back later, we're wasting people, money, time, and equipment because of non-compliance. And they said, do not lower this fine. So I think the fact that we're sending the message here today that we're just receiving this for information, I think will really help frontline staff morale, sending a very serious message to Edmontonians that we expect full compliance. We expect that you will do your part here too, that you will be a partnership. And finally, again, and this is not an excuse. This is not an excuse. But I was looking at the numbers, and just in the last decade, we've added more than half as much roadway as the entire city of Montreal since 2013. All of thousands of kilometers. We've added thousands and thousands of kilometers, half of the entirety of the city of Montreal in 10 years. And their budget for snow removal is $200 million. Edmonton's budget is $70 million. So when you think about all of that extra work we have to do, and you think about how we're doing it with way less dollars, I can understand why people are saying, I can understand why residents are saying, yes, we need more and we got to put in more money and we got to do better. But also, given the budget, given it is, here we are right now, I just want to urge a little more patience for the people in the plows and the people actually out there doing the work. It is absolutely unacceptable that they've had to tolerate anything less than our gratitude. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jans. And Councillor Rutherford to close.
Yeah, I do want to close on this because I do want to provide a bit of context and thoughts specific to the report and, parking fines and fees. But before I do also want to echo my colleagues' thanks to the city workers. I have been saying over and over again that they are working 24/7, and it is absolutely true, and it has been a high precipitation event that has, been continually, we're still digging out from, literally. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And that's, I'll start with the workers' voices as one of the reasons why I, even though from an equity lens, I do think 250 does feel a bit punitive at times, specifically for those that may fall between the cracks of communication. That's, what I was hearing from between 2022 and today, a lot of seniors that don't have the technology to get the app notifications, from newcomers that, as Councillor Wright mentioned, don't necessarily speak English. So,
Sorry, point of order. I'm getting a message your mic is still not coming through. Is it possible to...
Okay, yeah, so is this better? I hope, but, you know, from seniors that, you know, don't have the technology to sign up for the apps and, or the text notifications, or even use text messaging. Seniors that don't, or sorry, newcomers that don't speak English. And so, you know, when we have a fine that is so high, we do have to couple it. I do want to acknowledge, and I did acknowledge, that we have improved communication, and I really am heartened today to hear more willingness to continue to improve that communication, to look at ways that maybe some of those demographics that are falling through the cracks are more aware. At the end of the day, I do think it is going to come down at this point to consequences, matching and reflecting the severity of this. And what I'm hearing from operations, what I'm hearing from QP members, what I'm hearing even from Edmontonians is that when people don't adhere to the parking ban, it causes safety concerns, it slows down our work, and it is really serious, and we have a shared responsibility. So my hope is that we reflect that in the next 4-year budget with the resources to then accompany the parking bans with a clear message that enforcement and towing will be a component of that. I didn't move that forward today, as mentioned, because we're going to be having a more comprehensive conversation about parking in May, and so that seems like a more apt place in which to do that. But I wanted to express my, you know, what I've been hearing from the residents I serve and Edmontonians more broadly is that they want to see ticketing and towing enforcement scaled up when there's a parking ban. So again, thank you to everyone. Thank you for the great discussion today. I think it constantly highlights that there's no perfect secret recipe or fine amount that will get compliance. Compliance is about consistent messaging and consistent understanding of the consequences of what will happen if you don't comply over time. And so let's keep up that consistency. Let's all work together as a city to get our sidewalks, our roads cleared whenever there is a parking ban. And again, thank you to all of the city staff for working tirelessly over the last few weeks, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rutherford. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. And that is carried. I believe we have, so that finishes that item. We don't have any responses to councillor inquiries, no private reports, no motions pending, but we do have a notice of motion from Councillor Morgan.
Sorry, I just got logged out for some reason. Let me just log back in. I could.
While we wait, if I could just correct a clerical error for item 5.1, the revised due date of bylaw 21301, amendments to bylaw 14600, community standards bylaw. It should be September 25th, 2026.
Thank you very much, clerk, and thank you for using that time for Councillor Morgan to find the notice of motion. So go ahead, please.
Okay, I'd like to present a notice of motion that administration, as part of the upcoming review of Council Policies C409K, snow and ice control policy, include options, risk analysis, operationalization timelines, and resource implications for different or innovative operational tactics, including but not limited to calcium chloride, application of roadways to improve snow and ice control service delivery.
Thank you very much. And
Sorry, point of order. When is he doing that motion? At what meeting?
Oh, sorry. Oh, that report. Sorry, January 27th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, anybody else with notice of motion? I thought Councillor Paquette was going to have one, but I think he's going to do that tomorrow then. Okay, perfect. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.